I'm Nora Bennani. I am a T-cell lymphoma expert at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I have been treating patients either outside of clinical trial or within clinical trials. I am considered to be a clinical trialist or a clinical trial investigator. Clinical research or clinical trials are considered particularly for rare diseases and difficult to treat diseases, a key component of the management of our patients. So when a patient asks me what is a clinical trial, it's basically a very structured way of introducing newer therapies that have been studied and showed potential for efficacy in a disease type. So, for example, in T-cell lymphoma, where we have limited tools to treat the disease that is somewhat hard to manage, we usually emphasize enrollment in a clinical trial because that way the patient will have access to treatments that could potentially be significantly that can be efficacious for their disease. Clinical trials are studies where we try to investigate a new therapy for our patient. You often will hear clinical trials in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. To help you understand that when you hear phase 1, it is an early phase clinical trial where the drugs has not been studied yet in a human, but we have some data in animal models that show efficacy, and that's what we call the in vivo, or on a dish where they studied the tumor markers and there is evidence of efficacy, and that's the in vitro data. Usually phase 1's goal are to show whether the study drug is safe to the patients from the side effect standpoint, and also ultimately to potentially see whether it is efficacious. Phase 2 study is a more advanced phase on looking at the efficacy of the drug. So we've had the initial data through the phase 1, there is a signal of activity, and now we want to study it more in a bigger cohort of patients or a larger number of patients. And in general, these studies can be either single-arm study, meaning just the investigational drug being studied, or it can be randomized. But in general, the study, the number of patients in the phase 2 studies is relatively small, but it depends on how rare the disease is or how common the disease is. Phase 3 are usually randomized studies where the patient either receives the standard of care that is available, that is FDA approved, or the new investigational drug. So in general, is 2 arms or sometimes even 3 arms when you are studying various combinations. Usually larger studies, usually multi-institutional, meaning several centers across the country are participating in this study. A clinical trial is a way for our patients who have rare diseases and who have limited treatment options to therapies to have access to something that is new, that could potentially have good efficacy for their disease. The standard of care therapies that are now have regulatory approval through the FDA went through that initial process and showed efficacy and eventually got to approval. These newer therapies, their goal is to show that they are more efficacious than the standard of care. However, the only way to know whether that is the case is by studying it through clinical trials to studying it in a more regulated fashion and to get it eventually to the market and to our patients. Clinical trials are important for our patients, and the reason why I think they are important because that will give the patient access to treatments they will otherwise not have access to. Some of these clinical trials to get the treatment from the initial phase 1 clinical trial to FDA approvals can take several years. And during those several years, the only way to have access to some of these potentially highly efficacious medications or treatments, it will be only through a clinical trial. And for a rare disease where we don't have many options, unfortunately, and we tend to run out of good treatment relatively quickly, it is very important to consider enrollment in a clinical trial. It is important for all of our patients to have a discussion about what clinical trials are available to them, because that will give them access to treatments that otherwise will not be available to them. We as medical professionals, when we offer a treatment, we are obligated to there are the standard of care treatments. It is my duty to also let them know what's available out there in terms of clinical trials, because that will provide them with treatments they will otherwise not have access to. Prescribing a medication that is not FDA approved is often not covered by insurance, and the only way to access those medications is through a clinical trial. And we know some of those medications or some of those treatments that are under study may take several years to go through the regulatory process before they get FDA approved. Normally, the way a clinical trial works, it either provides a patient with a new treatment on its own, so one-arm clinical trial, that's what we call it, a single-arm clinical trial, or it will be a randomized trial where, through a software, will randomize the patient 1-to-1, sometimes 1-to-2, to either standard of care or the investigational treatments that we are studying. So the patient will either get the standard of care or will end up getting the new treatments. And that gives the patient the chance to have access to a new treatment that will otherwise not have access to. I normally will say it is very important to consider participating in the clinical trials, because the standard of care therapies started that way, and they became standard of care after we were able to study those drugs and prove that they are safe and efficacious for our clinical trials. And sometimes we see some amazing therapies that are better, potentially better for our patients in terms of outcomes as compared to the standard of care. And that's the goal of all clinical trials, is to find therapies that are potentially better than what we have available to them as part of the standard of care. I will highly encourage them to consider treatments on a clinical trial, because that will give the patient access to treatments that they will otherwise not have access to. And some of these therapies can be revolutionary for the treatment of certain diseases. And definitely, it's an advantage to have access to that.